if you're an All Blacks fan. Very nerve-wracking final 10 minutes, and it's been like that for a few test matches this year. Did you get everything you wanted out of that game? Were you entertained by that test match?
Yeah, I was entertained. I watched it with a big group of people. We were all had a barbecue, sat around, watched the game. Everyone was on the edge of their seat. And I speak for everyone, and I think all of New Zealand, when we thought this was going to be a thwarting. We saw the opening 10 minutes, the 3 tries scored. We saw the errors. There was a comedy of errors from this Australian team, from the tackles to the drop balls to the passes. And I thought, you know, we're in for a massive cricket score here. And then all of a sudden, Australia decided to come on back in, and it gave us an entertaining game. And, you know, despite the All Blacks lull in that last 20 minutes, it kept us on the edge of our seats. We were entertained because we knew their form in that last 20 minutes, and we were all hoping, are they going to get there? Will they score a try? They didn't, and I think, you know, that's what made everyone quite nervous. But albeit still entertaining. Yeah, you just said we probably thought that the All Blacks were going to thwart the Wallabies. I mean, everyone on the panel last night picked a 13+ win for the All Blacks. Did we perhaps underestimate the Wallabies?
Well, I mean, the start probably, you know, when they sort of got going, I mean, there's a lot of heat behind the fact, you know, they've just been to South Africa, beaten by the best team in the world, and then to come there and start like that, but probably underestimated the rivalry. You know, I mean, it was almost reminiscent of the, you know, the game of the century, really, wasn't the way the Wallabies sort of came back. But there's instances there as well from the All Blacks, inefficiency to actually close the game out too, when there was opportunity just after half-time. So I think that's probably the concerning part for the All Blacks. Relief that they won, and I suppose you celebrate now, but now we're into game mode once again for the All Blacks, and those opportunities that they missed out on, Bossy, I mean, they will be detailing that big time. Yeah, definitely so. And I think, to be honest, it looked like two very teams that were struggling with confidence. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a high-class, confident display from both of them. Aussie were very, very poor at the start, and they gave us those tries. At the same time, I think the team that would have got the most confidence will be New Zealand, the way they held out at the end of the match. I know they didn't score points, but they were down 2 men, down 1 man. You can't expect them to score points. Surely the Wallabies get a little bit of confidence out of that, knowing that they pushed the All Blacks within 1 score of winning. Yeah, they do, but they miss so many tackles, they drop so many balls, they're not getting confidence out of that, you know. They almost got there when the All Blacks were under the pump, down to 13, down to 14. So they'll retain some, but I actually thought the Wallabies were going to get a victory against the All Blacks this year, and if they were going to, it was going to be in Australia. It's not going to be in New Zealand. Yeah, but they still put themselves in that situation to be down to 13 men. And I think the ill-discipline is one thing, but that's born of pressure, and that's because we were under pressure in those 20 minutes. And, you know, Anton Leonard-Brown was, you know, the sacrificial lamb for the repeated infringements, and Caleb Clark, you know, he was under pressure, so he put his hand out for that, and so that's what ended us, you know, up in the bin. So, yes, they did well to still hold on, being down to 13 men, but at the same time, should never have been in that position. I mentioned it yesterday, I kind of disagree with Bossy. I think the Wallabies will take more out of that game in terms of the confidence, because you fix the start and you're away, and perhaps that's, you know, for them, perhaps it's a mental thing. They were too loose. They were, you know, they didn't want to get loose with the All Blacks, because you hand over sort of turnovers and they'll punish you, and that's what they did. The line speed was ineffective from the Wallabies, and I think when you break that down, you know, when Joe Smith breaks that down, it might be a bit of attitude. It might be the fact, hey, we've got to start well, compared to an All Black side that you're going, hey, in the middle of the game, what do you actually try and focus on? And there could be, you know, hundreds of things, and you've got to also remember, it's the same period of time that they haven't quite got right throughout this whole tournament. So sometimes when you roll into a game like this and you've won, you go, okay, well, what do we fix? And there might be 50 things on the table. What do you actually prioritise? And that's where I think the Wallabies are probably going to come in with a bit more confidence, because they know, hey, we fixed the start and we can take this team, you know, right through to you know, perhaps winning the game. Well, let's talk about some of the cattle for the All Blacks then, and some of the new players in 2024. Taylor, a couple are standing out, Wallace Satiti and Cortez Ratuma. Have they cemented their starting spots for the rest of the season for the All Blacks? Oh, for me, Wallace definitely has. He is our 6 going forward. We tried with Samu Penifenau. He didn't offer us exactly what we wanted, but I think with Wallace, he's giving it to us on attack and defence. He came out with some key turnovers. You know, his stats were crazy. 17 carries, just 1 behind Adi, who had the most. 10 tackles, 2 clean breaks. He works hard on and off the ball. He's everywhere you need him to be, and he plays with confidence too. Like, this guy's in his debut season. It's crazy, isn't it? It's actually crazy. And I love to see it. And he's such a great kid too, off the field. And, you know, we call him a kid, but he's an All Black now, but he's so young, and I hope we get to see him develop.
I almost think he's 8. I think he'd be a very, very good 8 for the All Blacks at the moment. And I think, why not? You know, you've got those other ones in there. You've got other options at 6 and 7. Kane's playing well, but he is leaving at the end of the year. Sevilla, he can afford to put him back to 7. Bring in Finau. You've got, I think he's an 8.
So you want Finau back in, and you want to move Wallace to 8 and Ardie to 7 and get rid of Sam Cane.
I'll get rid of him. It's a tough one, but it's just, he's made that decision in his career, and, you know, you are building. It's tough. He's a great leader, and he's obviously there for that, but, yeah.
I'll bring Dalton back in. Like, I'm a stats person. You guys know that. Sam Cane, 4 carries, 5 tackles from your 7, over 65 minutes in the game. And then you look at the work rate of Ardie and Wallace. Like, for me, I'm putting Ardie...
So when he went off, they didn't score any points?
Yeah, that is true. But, I mean, as a 7, what's your number 1 job?
Well, I think he's the leader there at the moment. And that's, you know, whereas you've got to build that leadership around him.
Yeah,
so.
I think what will give Razor Robinson the confidence is that they've won, right? They've kept the cabinet and they kept the cup in the cabinet. I think he can sort of experiment. Well, not so much experiment, but give those guys an opportunity. I think Finau needs to come in. You need to breed him. Wallace wouldn't have got that, you know, unless someone sort of, you know, Blackadder sort of went down. You need to now start, you know, breeding those guys to give them, you know, some of that sort of experience in these test matches. Bring Finau back. Is it off the bench? Does he start? I think even moving Ardie around, I think moving into 7 and putting, and that will give, you know, Scott Robinson a bit of, I suppose, an opportunity to be able to, I suppose, not experiment, but give some experience to these younger guys coming through. And it creates competition in the back row, which is, I think, is not a bad thing at the moment. A few experienced ones, getting a bit of pressure on them, brings the best out of the younger ones. That's how you get a bit of a reaction. Jacobson's there as well, but I think he falls more into that mould of unfortunately, might always be on that bench that can cover a number of positions. The big thing we know about Razor is sentiments, you know. He's done it to White Crockett, you know, and we know this is Sammy's 100th game. I'm not sure whether he's available for end-of-year tour, but he's willing to make that call at Super Rugby level.
Hold on, you're saying, so he didn't let Wyatt Crockett play the final, even though that was his final year of Super Rugby, he was the most capped Super Rugby player of all time, but he made the call that the team was better off having him as a support player that week.
100%. And so, but what I'll get back to is he made it in Super Rugby. This is Test match. You know, is he willing to make that? I'd love to see Sammy play, you know, his 100th game if he's not available at the end of the year. But I think there's also an element where the All Black, you know, coaching staff have got to say, well, hey, when are we going to actually breed these guys? And is it Italy in the end of year tour? I don't think you're going to get as much, you know, pressure as what you would against a Wallabies side that are hurting coming to Wellington, even though they've kept the cup in the cabinet.
Well, the major problem with the All Blacks at the moment, we all know it, and that is their finishing woe. So what is happening? Let's look at the stats, Taylor, since you love a stat. The All Blacks have not scored a single point in the 60-minute mark onwards of a test match. So the final 20 minutes in 5 straight tests of the Rugby Championship. What is happening?
I don't think there's one right answer as to what the issue is. It's not pretty reading, is it? I mean, you can quickly blame the bench, but it can't be just them. I think it's the game plan, but the one thing I do want to point out is I think it's our lack of physicality draining the teams earlier on in the match. You think about it, we don't have those big barnstorming runners. We have, you know, a couple, but we don't have a pack like England and like South Africa. I looked at the gain line success of the All Blacks just in that one game. They only crossed the gain line 53% of the time. 65 times they carried and were stopped in their tracks. They went backwards. You compare that to Australia, 63% of the time they crossed the grain line. So for every carry, Australia were getting 4 metres. We were only getting 2. That says something. So they're beating us up front in that collision area. I think that's why, is that we're not tiring teams out. They still have energy in that last 20 minutes to give it to us. And I do think that physical battle is part of it. People aren't as exhausted as they usually are. You know, Mills, you'd come up against a team, you'd beat them up straight away. You know, people feared playing the All Blacks because they knew it was going to be physical. You braced for it. You're almost playing defensive rugby straight away. You're playing your survival rugby. You're trying to just stay afloat. But at the moment, we're not, you know, giving it to them. Yes, we scored 3 tries in that first 10 minutes, but it just wasn't a physical battle to get there.
Yeah, those first probably 3, I mean, the Wallabies were pretty passive as well. And the concerning part and the red flag for me is the fact that we haven't scored any tries in that last sort of, you know, 60 to 80 minutes and we've conceded 50. And also the fact is there could be so many contributors, Bossy. What are they? And I think that's the thing. You can put 100 things on the table and say, hey, it's the bench, it's this. Perhaps the message at half-time isn't quite as clear when you're into a comfortable lead. What do we need to put the foot on the throat? What are those priorities leading into Wellington to go, okay, because it's something that's happened for the last probably 3 or so games, well, the whole championship, right? And the issue you've got is, if there's so many things on the table that you've got to try and fix, what do you prioritise? I get the point, the fact that we've got to beat players up, but you've got to be smart about it too. It's almost like a simulation run at the moment for them. And I feel with the pressure that's on them, they're not sort of seeing the opportunity to win that physical battle. And I think it's, again, back to what I mentioned earlier, I think it's back down to confidence. They're not going in there thinking, where they're scoring, they're just looking for points every time. But now, because everyone else is talking about it, they're getting late in the game, they'll be like, oh, they're talking about the last 20 again. So it's almost like, but a confident team, they can put that out. And when they get under pressure, it's perceived. Like even in the second half, they chose to kick for the posts, and I haven't seen an option like that where they might have gone for the try. They got it then, but then they put themselves under pressure. Silly yellow cards, silly everything. So that's the aspect. A really confident team can soak that up and then go again, where at the moment they're just containing it. So the weekend, I think, was a little bit of an anomaly because they were down to 13, down to 14, so they did well to hold on for that last 20 rather than score points. But yeah, the 50 over the other matches, and that is concerning.
You've mentioned a couple of weeks, Mills, that it seems clunky. Do you think that could be a case of this is a completely new team, not just new coaches, but new physios, new managers, new mental skills coach for the first time in 16 years that it hasn't followed the succession plan? So how long would it usually take to actually transfer things over? This is so new. This isn't like we've had for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and we're not the team that we were. We've got to give them an opportunity to try and grow that. The great thing is, okay, if you look at it, we've kept that cup. Yeah, we had an opportunity to, we could have, there's an opportunity to beat the best team in the world. They're at their peak right now. And they're so good, South Africa, even though they lost against the Argentina, but they still had 10 changes, We've got to, and I get back to the point earlier in the year, we've got to be a little bit more patient. We're not gonna start being where we were for the next 18 or so months. The India tour, that's going to give us some big lessons, hopefully not too big of lessons in terms of the result, but I think he's starting to grow, in different positions. He's starting to breed the new guys. The leadership group will come together. You're talking about different voices in the environment. When they click, it's not far away, but it still is. And once they do, I think we're away.